Good evening, you're now with me, Radzi Ahmad, for TVS Nightline. Here are the headlines for tonight. Sarawak Governor Tun Pehin Sri Dr. Wan Junaidi Tuanku Jaafar pays a visit to the MIRI Red Crescent Temporary Evacuation Center. And Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim orders stronger coordination between federal and state response teams in the face of worsening floods. In world news, a passenger jet carrying 64 people crashes into Washington's Potomac River after colliding mid-air with a military helicopter. Sarawak Governor Tun Pehin Sri Dr. Wan Junaidi Tuanku Jaafar and his wife, Tuan Puan Datuk Patinggi Fauziah Muhammad Sanusi, paid a visit to the MIRI Red Crescent Temporary Evacuation Center on Thursday to visit the victims of the Kampong Lereng Bukit landslide. Tun Wan Junaidi and his wife arrived at around 2:20 p.m. and proceeded to distribute food aid to 25 displaced households. The center is currently sheltering 105 victims from 25 families. The deadly landslide, which struck at 3 a.m. on Wednesday, destroyed multiple homes in Kampong Lereng Bukit and claimed 5 lives. Unprecedented rainfall of up to 400 millimeters since Tuesday has triggered massive flooding and displaced thousands in Bintulu in one of the worst flood disasters to hit the region. Deputy Premier of Sarawak, Dr. Amar Douglas Ugambas, says the extreme downpour overwhelmed Bintulu's rivers, causing it to overflow.
In Bintulu, we were told they were facing unprecedented flood. Tidak pernah banjir yang sebegitu besar melanda Bintulu, and the rain is not due to the blockage of the rain, tetapi pelimpah sungai. So it happened sudden, and it happened during the Chinese New Year.
He said this to reporters after visiting the Temporary Evacuation Center PPS at SJKC Chonghua Batukawa earlier today. Nonetheless, Uga, who is also the Sarawak Disaster Management Committee SDMC chairman, said the situation in Bintulu is now under control, and that SDMC is actively relocating flood victims as well as distributing aid and essential supplies to affected victims. Additionally, the Public Works Department, JKR, has been instructed to take immediate action to repair roads damaged by heavy rains and floods. The families of the tragic MIRI landslide incident at Kampong Lereng Bukit early on Wednesday will receive financial assistance from the state, amounting to 50,000 ringgit. Deputy Premier of Sarawak, Dr. Amar Douglas Ugambas, says the aid is intended to help ease the burden of the victims' families. Meanwhile, Minister of Women, Childhood and Community Wellbeing Sarawak, Datuk Sri Fatimah Abdullah, stated that her ministry is also providing counseling support to the victims' families.
Yang meninggal kita bagi 10,000 pembahasan. Satu.
Ya, orang. Jadi bagi keluarga yang masih hidup, kita tahu bahawa ianya adalah satu musibah dan jadi satu keadaan yang berat untuk ditanggung mereka. Maka di bawah Jabatan Kebajikan kita ada kaunselor yang boleh memberi iaitu khidmat kaunseling kepada mereka.
The landslide, which occurred at 2:58 a.m. on Wednesday, claimed the lives of 1 male and 4 female victims, aged 8 to 71. They were from 2 families living next to each other on the same plot of land in the village. Meanwhile, 7 other victims, 2 men and 5 women aged 17 to 71, survived the incident. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim has ordered the National Disaster Management Agency, or NADMA, to strengthen coordination between federal and state response teams following the worsening floods in Sarawak and Sabah. Anwar said the primary focus at the moment is the welfare of flood victims and ensuring the safety of people in the affected areas. In a Facebook post, the Prime Minister expressed his heartfelt sympathies to the thousands affected, saying he hopes they find the strength and resilience to endure this hardship. He also directed state education departments to take necessary measures, ensuring that SPM candidates in flood-hit areas can sit for their exams safely. Meanwhile, the squad Ihsan Madani will be deployed to aid evacuees at relief centers and remain on standby for post-flood recovery operations. According to the National Disaster Command Center, NDCC, over 10,600 people have been evacuated as of 4 p.m. today, with 6,884 in Sarawak and 3,929 in Sabah.
Kita telah koordinasikan dengan Kor Jurutera, Angkatan Tentera dan juga pihak JKR untuk membina jambatan.
Meanwhile, Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Ahmad Zahid Hamidi said all federal and state disaster relief assets have been deployed to 13 flood-hit locations in Sarawak. He added that NADMA is working with relevant agencies, including the Education Ministry, to identify more schools and community halls in higher ground areas for use as relief centers. The National Disaster Management Committee is also assessing the need for Bailey bridges to restore access in flood-damaged areas. Meanwhile, Ahmad Zahid said an early warning system has been activated to provide at least 3 days' notice before high-tide events, allowing residents to evacuate and safeguard important documents and belongings. With rainfall exceeding 20 millimeters daily at 13 meteorological stations, he reminded the public that the northeast monsoon will last until March, urging those in high-risk areas to remain vigilant. A total of 1,264 flood victims have been relocated to 17 temporary evacuation centers, or PPS, in Sirian following heavy rainfall over the past few days. According to Bukit Semuja Assemblyman John Ilus, the PPS at Sirian Town Hall alone is sheltering 209 evacuees from 60 households.
Secara keseluruhannya, kawasan-kawasan yang banyak terlibat dengan banjir ini, kalau di Sirian sini, khususnya di kawasan Tebekang, sepanjang sungai Batang Sadong lah, dan ada juga di kawasan-kawasan lain seperti di Betong Kenawi, yaitu di kawasan Lintang Baru juga pun kena, begitu juga di sebahagian daripada kawasan di Siburan yang itu juga terlibat. Dan kalau kita melihat kepada secara keseluruhan, termasuk di kawasan Belaringin pun juga ada yang terlibat dengan banjir ini.
He said this when met by TVS at the Sirian Community Hall earlier today. In addition to flooding, he noted that landslides and fallen trees have been reported in several locations, disrupting electricity supply and posing challenges in delivering aid to affected areas. John also advised residents in Sirian to remain vigilant, especially as water levels continue to rise.
Anggota-anggota yang terlibat secara langsung termasuk APM, ATM, Rela dan juga jabatan-jabatan kebajikan khususnya, mereka memang membantulah dari segi pemindahan, dari segi support, dari segi moral, begitu juga dengan makanan.
The temporary evacuation centers in Sirian have been operating since January 28th, following a rapid rise in water levels. Scores of people are feared dead after an American Airlines regional passenger jet and a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter collided and crashed into the frigid Potomac River near Reagan Washington National Airport on Wednesday night. The plane was approaching Reagan National Airport at around 9 p.m. local time after flying from Wichita, Kansas, when the collision happened. American Airlines, whose subsidiary PSA Airlines operated the Bombardier regional jet, said there were 60 passengers and 4 crew members on board the aircraft. The U.S. Army officials said the helicopter involved was a Black Hawk carrying 3 soldiers on a training flight, their status currently unknown. The massive search and rescue operation was in progress, with divers visible in the glare of powerful lights as they plunged into the snow-lined Potomac to scour the wreckage of both aircraft. Washington Fire Chief John Donnelly said at a press briefing that emergency crews, totaling about 300 people, were working in extremely rough conditions and gave little indication they expected to find anyone alive.
So it's a highly complex operation. The conditions out there are extremely rough for the responders. It's cold. They're dealing with relatively windy conditions. Wind is hard out on the river. So they're out there working. We're doing everything we can to keep them safe.
The Federal Aviation Administration ordered the grounding of all planes at Reagan National, and the airport was not due to reopen until 11 a.m. local time on Thursday. Questions were expected to focus on how a passenger plane with modern collision avoidance technology and nearby traffic controllers could collide with a military aircraft over the nation's capital. A man who repeatedly burned the Quran in 2023 in Sweden has been shot dead, according to local media earlier today. A Stockholm court was due to rule today whether Salwan Momika, a Christian Iraqi who burned Qurans at a slew of protests, was guilty of inciting ethnic hatred. It postponed the ruling until February 3rd, saying that because Salwan Momika has died, more time is needed. Police said in a statement they had been alerted to a shooting in the city of Södertälje, where Momika lived. The statement added that the shooting occurred indoors, and when police arrived, they found a man who had been hit by shots, and the man was taken to hospital. In a later update, police said the man had died and a murder investigation had been opened. Several media outlets identified the deceased as Momika and reported that the shooting may have been broadcast live on social media. In August, Momika, along with co-protester Salwan Najim, was charged with agitation against an ethnic group on 4 occasions in the summer of 2023. According to the charge sheet, the duo desecrated the Quran, including burning it, while making derogatory remarks about Muslims on 1 occasion outside a Stockholm mosque. And those were the updates on TVS Nightline. I'm Razi Ahmad. Thank you for watching and have a good night.